Well, it's Monday, everybody. Welcome back. Monday, April 29th. So, I think we're just going to kick it off right with the elephant in the room. What in the hell is going on with radial racing? I mean, this weekend I wasn't at the radial race. I was actually at the big shootout race in Steel that Bobby Cole and Mike Hill were putting on. But I was getting updates from the radial race, and let me tell you, I don't know what we do from here. At least in the quote-unquote slower classes. RVW is going to be what RVW is. We saw most people run a string of 50s, and Ken Cortuccio ended up winning the race over Luis De Leon from Fuel Tech. Great to see both of them in the finals. Super happy about that. I'm super happy that Donald had a great event. Track prep, from what I hear, was just absolutely on point. And I don't know that LDR is an issue. I still think Pro 275 is. I mean, let's be real. Pro 275 running mid to bottom 60s? Okay. What worries me is when we get to X and Ultra. Now, I'm friends with all of these guys and gals that run in these classes. I've been around the radial world for the better part of a decade and a half. I mean, my first Donald race was in 2010, and we're in 2024 now. We're going to be going into No Mercy 15 this year. And, well, I've been going to No Mercy since 2010, with the exception of a couple of years that I had missed. So, if you haven't heard by now, and you are in the drag radial world, you have been living under a damn rock, Eric LaFerriere and White Rice went a 4:03 at 184 miles an hour. You didn't hear me wrong. A 4:03 at 184 miles an hour. Now, let me just give you a general, and given I did write about this, congratulations to Eric for one. It's just a stupid number. I just want to give you some context in regards to this. In 2010, February, I believe it was, of 2010, I was at South Georgia Motorsports Park, and David Wolf shows up in an orange Mustang, running bullhorns, which everybody laughed about because they're like, what in the hell is that? Like, that's not going to work. And proceeded to drop 440s like it was, no big deal. He was out there, like a 46, a 44, like he could do it on command. This was before we had RVW. This was boost versus no boost, which is essentially what RVW, boost versus no boost, graduated into what RVW is now. 440s on a radial tire. And I am pretty sure David's car was making well over 3,000 horsepower at the time. We're talking 15 years ago. 440s. An X275 car just went a 403, folks. A 403. 15 years later. I remember when X was barely knocking into the 480s and 490s. And Ultra was pretty much a 5-second class. And now, we're knocking on the doors of 3s. 3-second time zone in X275. I understand progression. Progression is one thing. This is just an annihilation of records at this point. And I don't know how you can sit here and tell me that the class is going to be healthy for long term at those numbers. I just don't see a way. And how do you put the lid back on Pandora's box once this happens? Yes, Eric runs a much different combination because it's a V6 import deal or an inline 6. When I say V6, inline 6, it is what it is. It's a 6-cylinder engine, not even a V8. And he wasn't the only one to drop numbers this weekend. Ron Rhodes went out there and went a 408 in his nitrous-powered Camaro. Now, Ron tests and tests and tests and is not afraid to blow stuff up. But if Eric would have gone that 403, we would have seen a new record from Ron. A 408 out of a nitrous car in X275 trim. And then you look down the sheet and you see 411. I think McCain Brothers, I believe, went a 411 in qualifying. And I think there was a 410. Someone ran a 410 during eliminations. And I'm over at another track just trying to kind of process all of this. And John Four, who is arguably one of the greatest door slammer photographers and my mentor and has been around the industry forever as well, we're sitting next to each other on the wall. And I'm like, John, look at this. Eric in White Rice just ran a 403. John was on the wall when David Wolf was running 440s in boost versus no boost. John and I have shared the wall for a decade and a half watching this stuff and capturing these images. And we just both looked at each other like, shit. I don't even know where you go from there. I never thought that we would be talking about X275 being a 3-second class. I thought that it was bad enough when X went in the teens. When a couple of drivers started consistently going into the 4 teens, I'm like, oh, this is terrible for the class, because you're never going to get cars that run high 20s or low 30s to ever come back again. And to my surprise, we have continued to have a decent, I don't think we're going to see the levels like we did 10 years ago or 8 years ago as far as X275 goes, or even longer than that when, we essentially had to have an A and B field because there were like 78 X275 cars that would show up. We're not going to get back to that. That's just not going to happen. But is there a way to put a lid back on Pandora's box now that we've had 2 cars running the 4.0s, one damn near running the 3s, and I haven't gotten to talk to Eric. I don't know how much shit he tore up on that pass, or if he tore up anything on that pass, or if Ron tore up anything on his 408 pass. And I understand records are cool. Everybody loves records. I am a huge sports fan. I have been a baseball fan my entire life. Sports and the attraction to sports, there's a lot of things to it, and records are one of those things. But seriously, at what point do we go, oh shit, this isn't good? We saw it years ago with Outlaw 10.5 when it just progressively got quicker. Now everything is cyclical in drag racing, and 10.5 has kind of made a comeback over in PDRA in that iteration of 10.5. It's not called Outlaw 10.5, but it's Outlaw 10.5 racers. So everything comes back around, and At one point, we thought RVW was on death's door. Now, OG RVW is long gone. I mean, these are all, let's be real, these are all pro mods with radial tires on them. And I can say that because I've seen a lot of them run in pro mod classes. They're pro mods with radial tires on them. These are not OG looking, factory looking cars, anything like that. So, yes, RVW is strong. You've got people like Stevie and Ken Cortuccio and Luis De Leon and just a whole host of others. I saw that Paulo said that he was bringing Black Betty back to RVW trim, and you've got Markowicz and Jeff Miller in Bumblebee. And why am I forgetting the other guy's name that ran a 51 next to Stevie this weekend? He has that damn Camaro, and I can't remember his name now. Oh my God, that's terrible. Old age will do that to you. So, but this X275 thing, I mean, do you just put weight on him? Well, I don't know how heavy he's required to run right now, but if you put weight on him, do you put weight on Ron? And then the problem is, what do you do with the other nitrous combos? See, the dynamic when it comes to the rules is all of a sudden one person will utilize a combination and essentially fine-tune and perfect that combination. And they'll go out there and they'll run harder because they're not afraid to break shit and test shit and, I mean, get every single increment that you can out of that combination. And then the rule makers will turn around and tack weight to that entire combination, and everybody else that's running that combo who has not gotten to that point is essentially penalized by the one guy or girl who does do that. We saw it with Brooders back, God, I don't even know how long ago this was now, when they brought a roots blower out in X275. We've seen it with turbo combos before. We've seen it, and it's not just in X, it's not just in Ultra. It happens in Pro Mod, it happens other places. Turbos pretty much got ruled out altogether of RVW. I mean, how many turbo combos do you see in RVW anymore? Which is disappointing. I mean, you don't see a lot of turbo combos in Pro 275. I mean, not nearly as many. But again, a lot of drag racing at a heads-up level also becomes monkey see, monkey do. If one guy is doing it, then everybody wants to hop on that bandwagon thinking it's the best combination ever, with the exception of the import stuff. Like, I don't see anybody, kind of emulating what Eric and the White Rice team have done. Or what Ryan Milliken has done with diesel stuff, with the exception of Jared Ring, who is running, he's not running X, he's, running LDR, or I think it's LDR. So, you've got kind of those one-off combos. It's not against the rules. It just becomes more difficult to handle the rules in regards to it, which, if you think about it, sometimes isn't, because you've got one car that you have to make rules for, and it's a lot easier to adjust what you need to adjust for a one-off than it is for, say, a nitrous big block or a nitrous small block or a turbo small block. It's one thing when you're adjusting the rules for somebody who's got that combination and he's the only person running that combination versus, oh, well, we're going to do this for the turbo small blocks, and you've got 30 drivers than chirping about rule changes because one person may go out there and dominate and the rest of them are still playing catch up, but because that one person who dominates has that combo, everybody gets kind of kicked in the nads regarding that. So that in itself is an issue. And then if we move down to Ultra, I see my buddy Jesse, I believe, went number one with a 445. A 445. I mean, this isn't unusual at this point. We're seeing mid to high 40s in Ultra all the time. We are talking about, I mean, outside of 235, we're talking about kind of like it's hard to even say the slowest Radial class anymore, because, you've got 235, but Ultra used to be a 5-second class. Now Ultra is running the same times that David Wolf did in 2010 with a 3,000 horsepower Mustang in boost versus no boost. An Ultra car. They're running in the... Are we going to see Ultra cars dip into the 30s? And if you do, what's that going to do to the class? And at what point as a rule maker do you have to look at the big picture and go, I need to do what's best for the encompassing the whole thing versus are you willing to piss off one or two people to try to appease 20 or 30 of them? Or are you going to say, no, we're just going to let it play out and then worry about the drop-off in attendance with Ultra or X-Race? I think LDR is healthy. I think Pro 275 is healthy. I think minor adjustments here and there is what they've been doing to those classes, and it's worked out fine. I don't know that you can make wholesale rule changes to classes. And I think if Ultra stays in the mid to high 40s and low 50s, I think you'll be okay. I think if it starts to get to the point where you've got, 2, 3, 4, maybe even a handful of drivers that dip into the bottom 40s, and I'm talking like 41-ish, 42-ish, and they can do it on the regular, think, you're opening Pandora's box at that point. I think we've already opened Pandora's box with the mid-40s. But if you keep it there, and that's where you want to be at. So if all of a sudden I come back here in April of 2025, and these cars are still at that 445-ish number, let's say 44 to 47, 48, if your front of the class runners are at that and everybody is bunched between like a 44 and a 52, 53, 6, 7 numbers, 8 numbers, something like that, I think you're okay. But now X, like, is the era in October that we see at Georgia, are we going to see 3-second time slips in Georgia during No Mercy for X275? And if we do, will that legitimately be the final nail in the coffin for X275? Because I don't see how, if you are a consistent, even let's say mid to low 420s on a regular basis, if you're in the, let's say you're running a 21 and Eric and Ron and the McCains are out there running O's, I mean, you're a whole lot of numbers off. We're talking, the difference between running a 23 and an 03 is 2/10. And if I remember correctly on the time slip, Eric ran like a 101 60-foot in an import. Again, we're never going to see the 75, 80 cars in X again. That's just not going to happen. Some have moved on. Some have gone no time racing, things like that. So you're never going to see the 75 to 80 X cars again. But what do we do to make sure that we have, 18, 20, 25 cars, 30 cars, something like that, in X and Ultra, honestly? I think you're always going to pretty much see full fields in LDR and Pro 275, and RVW is what it is. That's a huge swinging contest, if you will. We all know that you've got to run mid-50s at this point to truly be competitive on a regular basis. Now, with that said, records don't win races. My buddy Alan Feltz, huge shout out to him, kudos for winning Battle of the Thrones in Rockingham over the weekend. He was not a 4.0 car, typically in the 14s, and he took home the win. So huge kudos to him. It's not always the fastest, or I should say the quickest, that gets it done in qualifying that then turns around and wins a race. And a lot of the time, your number one qualifier isn't always the one that wins the race. Sometimes, if it's their weekend, it's their weekend. It was Alan's weekend. Alan went through, and listen, when you've got a field of drivers like McCain's and Rhodes, LaFerriere, Marquise Hatton, all these names, there is not an easy draw, if you will, and the same can be said for all of these classes. I've been around this long enough to know there are no gimmies in any of these classes. You are going to have to work your ass off if you want to win. That's exactly what Alan and the rest of the people, and Ken Cortuccio and the rest that took home victories at Battle of the Thrones did. You are going to have to fight and scratch and paw and do everything that you need to do to win round after round when you're going up against competitors of the caliber of drivers that and tuners and cars that you have in these classes. I am just concerned about where we go from here regarding X and Ultra. I love records. I can only imagine what my face would have looked like when Eric ran that 403 had I been there in person. Like, damn. That's impressive. But is it good? That is always going to be my question. You can be impressive, but is it good? Is it healthy? I don't envy somebody like a John Sears who has to handle the rules aspect of this, because I can only imagine what John's face looked like when Eric ran a 403 at 184. I wouldn't want to be in John's shoes. John and I have talked about this. I would not want to be in his shoes. Not at all. Because then decisions are going to have to be made. You really have to look at the healthiness of a class and where you want it to go and what you want it to represent and be in the future. And are you going to grow the class, or are you just going to let the same, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 drivers just make everybody else look like, like, and no offense, because it is, and I don't want to take away from anybody, but there are notoriously going to be people that get butthurt over anything that comes out of my mouth. But when you're running a 403 and somebody else is running a 427, something like that, that's like high school versus JV a lot of the time. I'm sorry. And that's not to dig on anybody's program. That is a consequence of rules and a lot of other factors that go into it. Not everybody can test and spend the amount of money in their program But damn, a 403. And actually, I'm going to look this up right now because I've got it on my screen. I'm going to pull this up. You guys can see me. I still haven't figured out how to do picture-in-picture on this damn thing yet. I got to talk to Chad Reynolds and figure out how to do a picture-in-picture. So, to give you a general idea, let me put my old man glasses on here for a second. In 070 reaction time, a 101.9760, which was actually the slower of the 260s. I don't know who was in the other lane. The other lane ran a 100 flat 60. And then it went away after 60. Eric is at a 101.960, a 269.8 in the 330, and a 403.38. So it wasn't like, ooh, I just barely touched a 403. It was a deep 403.3. So to give you guys a general idea, a 403.38, a 269.86, that's a 133 back split. A 133 back split at 184.20 miles an hour. That is hauling ass, people. That is getting her done. Getting her done to the point where everyone else is looking around going, the hell are we going to do now? Let's see what else. So it looks like it was 62.8 degrees, and they were at 732 feet of DA. From what I can tell on this time slip app, if I'm reading that right. So, yeah, we don't see a lot of, low 60s temperatures and DA below 1,000. Sometimes on the East Coast during the fall. Sometimes in the South during the early months of the year. I was kind of surprised the DA was. Then again, it is North Carolina. So I don't think that you'll see a repeat performance like that during the summer months. I don't think you're going to see a 403 when it's 82 degrees out and the DA is, 2,000 feet. If you do, we've really got problems. If that happens in conditions where we're at 1,800 or above as far as the DA goes, and temperatures in like the low 80s, and we still see somebody run a 403, a 404, there's problems at that point. At that point, I don't know, that you're screwed. As a class, you're screwed because that would just be asinine. But again, kudos to Eric for running the number. I mean, that was a huge, huge number. But again, is it good for the class? And I know that drivers aren't worried about, well, is it good? I'm going to slow down my shit because it might not be good for the class. Drivers don't typically think like that. I know I wouldn't if I was a driver. I would want to go out there and put my best foot forward and, donkey stomp the shit out of everybody in the class because that's what you do as a drag racer. But, and let's face it, I mean, he was 5 numbers ahead of Ron, who ran a 408, and nobody else was even in the 4.0s. So, if you're talking about just numbers, if they put 50 pounds on him, what's he going to slow down to? A 408? 409 if you put 50 pounds? I mean, at some point you got to go, really, guys? Like, I look at drivers like Rob Goss and Kenny Hubbard, who have both made a step up to LDR. And I've seen some stuff on social media over the weekend. Eric should take that car and go to LDR with it. I mean, I don't know what the LDR rules look like. I bet you that car could be competitive in LDR, though, because I'm just willing to bet that car could be very competitive in LDR. I don't know if that's the direction they want to go, or they just want to keep just running asininely stupid numbers in X275. Either way, it's fun to watch. As a journalist and a photographer, I love it. Eric puts on a show on the starting line, especially at night, every time. But I also want the class to be around for another 10 years. And I don't know if that's going to happen if we start seeing consistent 4.0s. People aren't going to build a 4.0, a car that can go 4.0s to go X275 racing. They're going to build a car that goes 390s and 4.0s to go LDR racing. And what we're starting to see is, and we saw this in NMRA years ago as well, when you don't have a differential between classes, and what I mean by that is, in NMRA you had Ultra Street and you had Coyote Stock, and there was a significant enough ET difference between the two classes to know, these are the cars that belong in these classes. There is a significant enough ET differential between Ultra and X that that's an Ultra car, this is an X car. There is very quickly becoming not enough of an ET differential between X and LDR to be able to tell or acknowledge the fact that's an X car, this is an LDR car. And there is enough of an ET differential between LDR and Pro 275 that that's a Pro 275 car, that's an LDR car. There is quickly becoming not much of a differential. Well, there's enough of a number differential. I mean, we're still talking a full tenth, maybe, 10th and a half between Pro 275 and top tier RVW cars. So, and you don't really have, people argue all the time, well, half of those Pro 275 cars are pretty much pro mods anyways. Not like they are in RVW. I'm just saying. So, differential is good. It's the reason that we have the rules that we have too is to differentiate between classes. And when the ETs get so close together that you can barely differentiate between an X car and an LDR car, I think that we've got problems that need to be addressed. Again, I don't envy John Sears or any of the rule makers in any class for that matter. Jason Rickert with LDR, Jason and Tyler. I don't envy their job and what they have to do. Or Tyler and whoever does rule making over at PDRA. I don't envy any rule makers and the decisions they have to make, because there's so much that you have to weigh, and there's inherently outside pressure from sponsors. Well, if you ding my combo, or turbo manufacturers or supercharger manufacturers, or whatever it may be, you've got this, well, you kind of screwed us with these rule changes that you made, and now we're not going to give you any money as far as sponsorship. Trust me, if you don't think it happens like that, you're delusional. It does happen. There are some promoters that are much better at pushing back about that, like, well, fine, we just won't take your money, we'll find somebody else to sponsor. And kudos to them for not allowing sponsors to dictate rules. Sponsors should never dictate rules. Promoters should dictate rules, not sponsors, ever. I'll probably get a lot of hate from that, but I don't care. So, I am happy that there was good racing at Rockingham. Kudos to Eric and kudos to Ron Rhodes for being the second ever to run in the 4.0s in X in competition. Kudos to McCain's, I apologize. McCain's for running a fabulous number. I believe Marquise Hatton had a ridiculous number at one point. Congratulations to Alan Feltz from Kentucky on taking home the win. We'll just have to see where it goes from here. If I remember correctly, and I'm going to look this up for you guys before I misspeak, but I think that was the last points race for a while is part of the Radial. No, I'm wrong because there's a summertime race. Let's see. Yep, so Battle of the Thrones, and then we have one summertime race for points in that series, and that's going to be at Alabama International Dragway, better known as Steel, middle of July 18th through the 20th, and then we roll out to SGMP in October for No Mercy. So, do I think that we will see those kind of numbers at Steel in the middle of July? No. I don't think you'll see those kind of I don't think you'll see 40s in RVW. I think you'll see high 40s in Ultra. I think you'll see teens, maybe bottom teens, or like maybe an 11 or a 12 in X. But I don't think you're not going to see bottom O's in July in Alabama. I don't care if you don't start running until 7 o'clock at night and run halfway through the night. I don't think that you'll see O's. The track can hold it, that's for sure. But I don't think the air will be there to be able to run O's in July in Alabama. If it does, God help us. Because I don't even know what to say about that class at that point. That's just that I don't think that'll be good. If that were to happen, cars that can run O's in Alabama in July in X275 trim should be LDR cars, in my opinion. Again, I don't have a dog in this fight. I don't own one of these cars. I don't drive one of these cars. I've been around these cars forever. These are my friends that own and drive, operate, work on these cars, and race their asses off to do what they do. And so much, so many kudos to all of the racers who won at Rockingham and even competed at Rockingham this last weekend. I know it ran extremely late. I think Chris Sears said that. I think they were still going strong at like 3 a.m. Saturday night, Sunday morning. They were still going strong to wrap it up. I don't know, the details because I did not get very many details from that race. Again, I was not there. I wasn't getting a whole lot of updates. I was just seeing what was online. So we had some great racing at Steel until the lights went out. And yeah, I'll talk about that in our wrap up. Probably do a second video in regards to winners and losers and some of the other events of the weekend. And yes, I will touch on the Tasca incident at NHRA when I do the other video. So for now, that's all I've got on X. I'm happy to see the numbers. I'm concerned to see the numbers. I know it sounds like I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth, but I also look at it from a fan's point of view, a journalist's point of view, a photographer's point of view, a racer's point of view, because yes, I did used to drive a car. I mean, it was more of a street car, but yes, I did race and compete at events. Not at this level. I will never claim to be a quote-unquote race car driver. I don't even know if I'll ever go racing again. Me personally, I don't know if I'll ever go drag racing again. Yeah, I mean, it is so, it's become so, like, we use the word extreme all the time, and even our company's name is E3 Extreme. That word gets tossed around a lot in drag racing, is the word extreme. Well, guess what? I'm going to use it one more time. The numbers that these guys are running, these men and women are running, are extreme. Drag racing as a whole, technology continues to advance. We'll see what happens. But again, I'm happy for those who have run the numbers. I want to see the class continue to thrive and stay healthy. Decisions are going to have to be made. Don't come back at me, well, that was a one-off Hail Mary because of the weather, and, the angle of the front tire was like this, and the wind speed was just like this, and caught a fraction of this, and la-da-da-da-da, because I hear that bullshit all the time. The simple fact is he ran the number. He ran a number. Ron ran a number. So many of them ran the number. So don't give me this one-off Hail Mary. No, because you showed us the number. You showed us the number. We know what the number is. I don't want to hear all this other bullshit that people like to throw into it. That is the number. We always talk about what is the potential of that combo if you go all out with it. Well, we've now seen 2 cars go in the 4.0s. So, what is the potential repercussions for the rest of the class from this happening? What will we see moving forward? Again, I don't think you'll see those numbers in Alabama in the middle of July if we too were completely screwed. I think we could very well see those numbers if everything stays the way it is regarding rules. If everything we don't touch anything, we will see those numbers and more at No Mercy. October is such a hit and miss as far as temperature-wise, but in the evenings, after the sun goes down and that track tightens up, at SGMP, you will see those numbers. I think if nothing gets touched, you'll see that White Rice could easily knock on the doors of the 3-second zone in X275 trim. Yeah, that's kind of frightening, but that's where we're at. So, until next time, I appreciate all of you guys tuning in, or if you are on your favorite streaming service listening to this podcast, I truly appreciate it. And again, I always want to give a huge shout out to Menser Motorsports. Best shocks and struts in the business, hands down, period, point blank. Best customer service. If you need shocks or struts, I don't care what it's for, chances are they'll be able to build you something. I mean, numerous world records, world championships, you name it. They've been there, done that, and continue to do it. So hit up Menser Motorsports. Let them know that the guy with the pink hair sent you over. And Classic Graphics, listen, we all need branding apparel for our teams, our business, our events, whatever it may be. Get a hold of Scott over at Classic Graphics. You will not be disappointed. Great turnaround time. The cost is where it should be. It's not, some ridiculous cost or whatever. Great quality work. I've been using Scott for our apparel for 10 years now, and I will continue to as long as we stay in business. And so, yeah, definitely if you're looking for apparel, I mean, he can get you done with jackets, team shirts, t-shirts, just a whole hoodies, hats, beanies. I will not call them toboggans because I know what a toboggan actually is. It's the damn thing that you ride down the hill in the snow, not the thing you put on your head. People in the South need to really figure it out. So, get a hold of Scott. Get your apparel needs all handled through Scott. He'll take care of you. With that in mind, I'll talk to you guys again soon. Thanks for tuning in.